One of the key things is that it's essentially the technology is PCI Express tunneled over this Thunderbolt cable. Basically, it's fast. You can daisy chain multiple devices. Each Thunderbolt cable has 2 lanes of 10 gigabit per second bidirectional activity. You can hot plug it, which means you can be playing back in an application, a DAW, and disconnect it, and your DAW will keep on going, and you can reconnect it and go out and find that those devices again. So I'm really amazed.
Hi, my name is Mike Nicoletti. Sitting next to me is Bob Bauman. Bob's the co-founder, co-owner, and chief hardware engineer here at Lynx Technology, and we're going to chat a little bit today about Thunderbolt and all the new offerings that we have.
Hi, Mike. Glad to be here. What we have now is a new L-slot card, which is an expansion card that adheres to our proprietary L-slot interface standard, which exists currently for the Aurora and the Hilo products. So the LTTB we'll sell it separately for installation in units in the field. We are also bundling that as one SKU for Aurora and Hilo, so you can buy Aurora with LTTB pre-installed as well as Hilo with the LTTB installed as well.
I see. Okay. So this is field upgradable. If somebody wants to swap their card, they can. They doesn't have to send it back to us.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And we hear a lot about Thunderbolt, but what is Thunderbolt exactly? What type of new format is that in communication?
It's a new I/O technology developed by Apple and Intel. Each cable has 10 gigabit per second links in it, and it basically connects both Mac and Windows PCs to external devices, including audio devices, hard drives, via a cable. And it's a very simple connection that is useful on desktops and, most importantly, laptops, where a lot of people are doing the production. Apple and Intel are seriously behind this technology. We studied it quite a bit, and so it looks like a good thing to get into. It's just up and coming, first on Macs, and now we're seeing a lot of Windows PCs come into market. But the key things it's for users. It's easy to plug and play. It's an external connection with cables. You don't have to open your computer up. And for us, one of the key things is that it's essentially the technology is PCI Express tunneled over this Thunderbolt cable. We have a lot of experience with PCI Express from dating back 6 years now, and then prior to that PCI, which is very, very much similar to that because the protocols are the same. That was very attractive to us because the fact that it tunnels PCI Express means that we can use some existing hardware and IP, as well as some driver code. In fact, the drivers are almost identical to what's running like for our AS16E card, which is a desktop add-in card.
Right, I see.
So I mean, those are the key things we looked at.
Okay.
It's something that's going to continue on and be like the next generation of I/O technology.
Okay. Okay. And it seems like you kind of touched on this next question I was going to ask you about, like the advantages of Thunderbolt over like FireWire, USB, that type of thing.
Compared to those technologies, it is a lot lower latency. I mean, we know that from our experience too, because we have our AS16E PCI Express card, and we also have support for FireWire and USB. And our experience is based on the throughput, that the latency is much lower for PCI Express. And this is essentially like having a product in your desktop PC, but just happens to be at the end of a cable. And to your PC or your Mac, it looks like there's a card installed in your computer. It looks like a PCI Express device.
So when you're doing recording, the monitoring will be a lot better and that type of thing when you're doing your overdubs.
Especially if you're doing, I mean, all of our products tend to have hardware monitoring on for low latency, but a lot of times you want to go through your DAW software. So it'll support software monitoring where you can add effects and that kind of thing. Basically, it's fast. You can daisy chain multiple devices, and that was one of the key things with us. We have a lot of users that, for instance, we're showing here six Auroras, and you essentially can go into the top Aurora here off your MacBook Pro or your Windows PC, and then we can just daisy chain Thunderbolt cables down, and so that's basically 6 Auroras on on one Thunderbolt
cable.
port, which is
Right.
pretty amazing, right?
Right.
And it's and you could be playing back. It's you can hot plug it, which means you can be playing back in an application, a DAW, and disconnect it, and your DAW will keep on going, and you can reconnect it and go out and find that those devices again. So I'm really amazed by this technology. This is probably the most robust interface technology and well thought out technology that I've been involved with.
So it seems like it's at long last, it's like it really is plug and play.
Yes,
Finally, after all these
seriously,
years,
it is. I mean that was the claim for USB, but unfortunately, with audio devices, audio devices want to be synced to the computer, and if you're playing back an application and you just connect a USB port, you usually have to restart that application or sometimes reboot your computer.
Right.
That's not the case with this.
Right. Oh, that's great. Great. I'm already hearing about Thunderbolt 2. And what would that be, and will it be compatible?
Each Thunderbolt cable has 2 lanes of 10 gigabit per second bidirectional activity.
Okay.
And that's still the case with Thunderbolt 2. It's the same cable.
Okay.
With Thunderbolt 1, one lane was dedicated to a display port, which basically took all the display information, because we haven't mentioned that yet, but at the end of this chain, you can stick in a display. It would be a display port for an HDMI device or a DVI device or even a VGA device.
Okay.
So all of that, the data that would go to that display device would go over one of the 2 10 gigabit per second lanes.
Okay.
With Thunderbolt 2, you can actually combine and create an aggregate 20 gigabit per second channel. And so it's basically, you still have the same amount of total bandwidth, but you can combine it together. And the most immediate application for that is the new 4K HD displays, which require that much bandwidth.
I see. Okay.
Our device is totally backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 2. And in terms of the need for Thunderbolt 2 in our little bit of the world, is that this whole chain right here running at 192 kilohertz with all the channels running, which would be 32 channels on each for a total of 192 channels, only would consume 12% of one of the 2 10 gigabit per second lanes. So it's just just eking out a little bit of performance, and plenty of room for other. You could still stick a hard drive in there somewhere if you took out one of these, for instance.
Right. and hot connected while the audio is still going.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of your project.
Exactly.
Let me put the next song's on this hard drive.
Right.
And connect it right when you go. That's pretty amazing. So we did mention that. So just to reiterate, because we did mention it, so it is going to be Mac and Windows both. So some Windows computers are coming out now already with Thunderbolt. I know some of the Macs are.
There are. We in fact have one of the Asus motherboards that supports 2 Thunderbolt ports.
Okay.
We've had a laptop in here from our folks at ADK that has a Thunderbolt port on it.
Okay.
HP has 2 new laptops, a ZBook, and 15 and 17. So it's growing. The manufacturers are coming up to speed, and they're seeing the benefit of it.
Right. Okay. And speaking of the Macs, the new Mac Pro that's coming out, it's going to have like no slots, but it's going to have all the Thunderbolt and USB ports. So we'll be okay with the new Mac Pro. Yeah,
that's good. That's a pretty cool computer. I mean, some folks won't like it because you really can't install any cards inside that box.
Right.
And Apple's pushing Thunderbolt, and basically that box has a graphics card in it, and then 6 Thunderbolt ports. And we'll be able to plug in 6 of these for, I believe it's 1,152 channels of audio. So yeah, we fully expect. I mean, that's going to be pretty popular. We'll be getting one of the Mac Pros in here pretty quick and do some other demoing. But that should just be plug and play again. No problem at all.
Because it's 6 devices per port.
Right. Exactly.
So basically, 6 ports. Wow.
Yeah.
That might be enough channels. I'm not really sure. Now, as far as the Lynx Thunderbolt offerings, how does that compare with like, because there's some other manufacturers now coming out with their converters and things like that. How do we kind of compare with those other companies? And
of the few we've looked at, there's been some interesting implementations of Thunderbolt in some of the early devices. Like I mentioned before, PCI Express is the native data protocol that travels through the Thunderbolt cable, and of course, you always want to stay native when you can, as opposed to going to a different layer. In some cases, we've seen where folks have put in in their Thunderbolt device, they put in a FireWire interface chip, which actually has PCI Express on one side and FireWire on the other. And then so by doing that, you've added this additional layer of having PCI Express data being put into a FireWire chip, which actually goes into this packetizing thing, which adds some latency and some buffering. Any sort of additional layer, you're going to add some delay, latency in your system, and playback, and possibly reliability as well. For us, again, we've had the experience with PCI Express, so we know how to deal with it in its native form and offer the lowest latency.
So in other words, all Thunderbolt's not created equal. I mean,
exactly.
Devices, and you got to be careful about that. I guess we've covered this a little bit, the connectivity options and things like that. So we got 6 devices, and then and we can mix and match Aurora, Hilo. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
I
mean, just to clarify. So yeah, you're right. I mean, one Thunderbolt port, whether it be Thunderbolt 1 or Thunderbolt 2, supports up to 6 devices in that daisy chain, and you can still have a 7th device, which would be a display.
Right. Okay.
I envision, like let's say with the MacBook Pro, you're going to have folks that have displays. I mean, like some HD displays connected to a couple of the ports, and then you can have some hard drives, RAID hard drives on that, and then you could have just a huge assortment of audio devices, and create this essential patch bay via Thunderbolt of all these devices out there.
Oh yeah. Okay. It sounds like it's going to be complicated, and yet it's not. It's a very simple setup. You just daisy chain the cables, they show up, and you start working. How will we be doing like routing and things like that with the Thunderbolt?
A lot of the electronics, a lot of the mixing and routing capabilities that we have in the AS16E have been migrated over to the LTTB card. When it's installed in an Aurora, you basically have all of the mixing and routing capabilities that you had in AS16E, which is basically a 64 in, 32 out mixer that you can create any input to any output, or all inputs to any output as well. Okay. So you have this just complete flexibility of this massive mixer that's built onto the LTTB hardware. So it's very low latency. You can create low latency record mixes and monitoring mixes, that kind of thing. So as with the AS16E, we have an application that runs on both Windows and the Macintosh. In fact, we've got a new version coming out that's really slick. That's a one-page thing that's easier, makes it easier to route and mix things. So, yeah, we'll have that. Basically, you'll be able to do all your mixing and routing via that application.
Right. Okay.
When you have the card installed in a Hilo, being the fact that the Hilo has its own touchscreen panel, we decided to let the Hilo be the master in this case. So you'll be able to remotely control all of the features that you see on the screen, but you can still make changes on the Hilo's front panel, and those will be reflected up to we're calling it our Hilo remote control application. Again, so in that case, all the mixing and routing would still be done in Hilo. So you could save any of those scenes that you create remotely as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. And for anybody that went to the AES show just last month, we were showing the 6 Auroras and coming off of that single port and the display. So you probably got a lot of questions at the show about like when will it be shipping. I know the testing is going really well so far, so I'll put you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot here because we're doing some final tweaks on our firmware and stuff. But we expect to be shipping sometime next month. We've got production cards in right now, and we're going through testing on those, and things are looking really good. So we're excited.
Very cool. Well, thanks for the time, Bob.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.